Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Chatter. We have some interesting news in the movie theater industry this week. Time Warner is changing the industry forever.
Or at least next year.
To Random Chatter. No, come on, forever.
Probably.
Once you open that thing up, you can't go back. So that other voice you heard was Eric. Eric, how are you?
I am a little bit under the weather.
Oh,
I'm doing my best Barry White impression here. So,
well, you sound good. Yeah, maybe you don't feel good, but you sound good. So
thank you. You could have said, well, you look and sound good.
Well, I don't have your video up on my screen at the moment. I'm looking at show notes.
Good excuse. That is good, Lou. You saved yourself there.
I did. I tried. Yeah, I wasn't going to call you out on looking bad. I mean,
yeah, no, enough people do that.
And then we have Tim with us tonight. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Nice kind of low-key weekend, and yeah, looking forward to talking about this. This is the thing is we've been talking around this for a good part of the year, and while Universal, kind of loaded this gun back in the spring, Time Warner Brothers definitely pulled the trigger here. So there's a lot to talk about.
And it's interesting because, I mean, we'll get into this a little bit more, but, Eric, you and I have been talking about this probably for, 5 years or more. I mean, on and off. We've had different things come up in the news and on different shows. They had that, was that one thing you could buy that would do first run movies.
Yeah, we should probably talk about what this is.
Yeah,
too.
That's true. That's true. So we're talking about Time Warner announcing that they are going to drop movies, day and date with theatrical releases next year.
Yeah, on HBO Max.
Right, which is what they own, their streaming service they own. So let's unpack this all. We'll just jump right into this and unpack everything here. So this was announced on Thursday or Friday, I think it was,
something like
last
that,
week.
pretty recently.
Yep. So anybody who has HBO Max now is going to be insanely happy because of anything that Warner Brothers is going to put out in the movie theaters. You can either go to the theater and see it there if you feel safe doing that, or for the same $15 a month you're paying at home, you can watch these first run movies at home, just like we're all going to do with Wonder Woman 84 on Christmas Day this year.
Yeah.
So their subscription rate is $15 a month, and that's what it's been.
Yeah, which puts it at the highest price point prior to Netflix's increase, though there are cheaper options for Netflix. So, we were talking about, is it worth it?
Yeah, it does, but at the same time, that's what it's been to have HBO on your cable company for years, too. So when I had that on my Xfinity Comcast subscription, and for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, I'll drop it off my cable company, and I'll pick up the streaming service for the same price. I mean, I get more for my money, so why not do that? So let's just keep going through everything that we had to unpack, and then we'll kind of get into our discussions about this. There was a quote from Warner Bros. It said, "No one wants films back on the big screen more than we do. We know content is the lifeblood of the theatrical exhibition. But to balance this with the reality that most theaters aren't going to open up at full capacity throughout 2021, that's what they're kind of going for here. The list of films that they've announced here as part of this were 17 films. On January 29th, we have The Little Things. On March 5th, we have Tom and Jerry.
It looks so bad. Oh,
it does. So bad. Yeah. On March 12th, we have The Many Saints of Newark. Now, is this the Lin-Manuel Miranda?
No.
Or is that something else?
No, that's later in the list.
Okay. April 16th, we have Reminiscence. 5/21, we have the first of the big names coming out, Godzilla versus King Kong.
That big. I see what you did there because they're big.
Like yeah, no. They are big, but it's the first big blockbuster movie we're going to get. Let's see. 6/4, we have The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. What's that, the 5th or 18th film in that series? It'll make money. 6/18, we have In the Heights. That's the Lin-Manuel Miranda.
That's the Lin-Manuel Miranda.
So that one is highly anticipated. July 16th, we have Space Jam, The New Legacy. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. August 6th, we have The Suicide Squad. October 1st, we have Dune, which I am really looking forward to. November 19th, we have King Richard. 12/22, we have Matrix 4. And then there's a whole host of other stuff coming out that they don't really have dates for yet, I guess.
Yeah.
We have Mortal Kombat, Cry Macho, Malignant, Those Who Wish Me Dead, Judas and the Black Messiah. And I assume anything else that they put out this year that's under their banner.
Yeah.
So in response to this, the CEO of AMC had a few quotes, and I'm sure he had a few more comments that he didn't make publicly. But
real quick, before we get off of the list, Tom in the chat room said that Many Saints is the Sopranos sequel movie. Or prequel movie. I'm sorry. The Sopranos prequel movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guess I'll catch up to. I never watched Sopranos.
Oh, it's so good.
I wanted to. I never did.
Well, you can now with HBO Max.
I know I can. I got a lot of things I got to watch. So the comments from the AMC's CEO kind of far-ranging. You can kind of see where they're coming from, but says these coronavirus-impacted times are uncharted waters for us, which is why AMC signed on to HBO Max exception to customary practice for one film only, Wonder Woman 84, being released by Warner Bros. At Christmas when the pandemic appears it will be at its height. However, Warner now hopes to do this for all of their 2021 theatrical movies, despite the likelihood that with vaccines right around the corner, the theater business is expected to recover. Clearly, Warner Media intends to sacrifice considerable portions of its profitability of the movie studios division, and that its production partners and filmmakers to subsidize HBO Max startup. As for AMC, we will do all in our power to ensure Warner does not do so at our expense. We will aggressively pursue economic terms that will preserve our business. He goes on to say, we have already commenced an immediate and urgent dialogue with leadership of Warner on this subject. As this issue gets sorted out, we are nonetheless encouraged that vaccines protecting society at large against the coronavirus are very much at hand. So it is our expectation that moviegoers will soon be able to once again able to delight in coming to our theaters without any worry, viewing the world's best movies safely in our big seats with our big sound on our big screens.
So there are some good points in that. So number one, we are expecting vaccines soon, though the distribution of that is going to take a while. And Warner Media is sacrificing a considerable portion of the profitability of their movie studio division, without question.
Yeah.
Those are two real big things. Now, Tim, working in emergency management, you probably have a better idea than Lou and I do about getting vaccines out and stuff like that. And this is kind of... it's unprecedented in the modern age. I mean, vaccines have been distributed generations ago, but like this is a little bit different than the last time we had to do that. So what kind of time frame? Like we're now getting vaccines that look viable and the success rates are good, and we're looking at beginning distribution for that. But what kind of time frames are we looking at for actual widespread distribution, do you think?
It's going to take a long time. We're probably looking at the end of next summer to get, I don't know, 75 to 80% of the population vaccinated. And this is with several manufacturers each chugging out their own version of the vaccine. Keeping in mind that it seems the predominant model for vaccines is not one inoculation, but two. So that then requires more time. You have obviously the phases that are associated with this. And so obviously over the last week or so, we've seen that the approach here in the US and I think in a lot of other countries is that they're going to be hitting healthcare workers and elderly / high risk people first. The, normal person, quote, normal person, is like a phase 4, phase 5 thing. So, I mean, it's not going to get to us until, again, probably summertime. And then we're not going to see the entire inoculation experience for the most part, wrap up until sometime probably mid-fall.
Right.
So, yes, in a corresponding fashion, obviously some things are going to open up, but there are all sorts of issues associated with this. I mean, you have a lot of supply chain issues. There's this like deep refrigeration type of issue that a lot of these vaccines have to go with, because they have to be like negative 100 degrees that they have to be stored in.
Right.
And there's and the logistics of distribution is just huge. I mean, we've done regional mass inoculations for, like, you have a hepatitis outbreak or something, because some salad bar is found to be infected with it, and you end up with some people sick. And for the most part, once it hits a certain number, you're like, okay, no more contact tracing. We're just going to inoculate the 10,000 people in this area. And so they do that, and it's you kind of jump through your butt to do it. But that's it.
Right.
I mean, that's the recent experience that we have globally is doing those kinds of things. It's like, using a fly swatter. That's real easy. Now, we're in a swarm of stuff. We can't just use the fly swatter anymore. So it's a very, very different thing. And there's going to be some challenges. So it's going to take a while.
So if that's the case, and we're looking, and Tech here in the chat room pointed out that Canada's speculating that they're going to get their vaccine out to normal folks like by this time next year. Like, it's going to take the better part of 2021 to get the vaccine distributed, and in a large part because, like what you said, with the logistics and everything involved, as well as the coordination involved, and et cetera. So if that's the case, we're looking at least the summer, if not later into the year. Let's theoretically use that as the parameters for the rest of this discussion about what we expect to happen with theaters and what kind of effect this whole argument is going to have. So I have to say, as an HBO Max subscriber, I no longer have any concerns about the $15 a month subscription rate that I'm paying. That I was already pretty happy with. I have to say, like, of all of the non-Netflix streaming services, HBO Max is probably the one I use the most. It's good. I was on the fence about it at first. We had a couple of discussions about how we thought maybe it was a little bit overpriced, and the launch date was a little wonky and stuff like that. But it's been a good service, and this nails it. Like,
yeah, I mean, they already had a pretty good catalog beforehand,
right?
And they've been around. I mean, not as a streaming service, but HBO has been around for a long time. I mean, this is the first premium channel, I think, that was out on cable, right? I mean, back in the day, back in the early 80s. And so the history's there. They have a lot of back catalog stuff. They've got some good new stuff on the service. I haven't watched the Flight Attendant yet, but it's on my list to watch. Been watching Raised by Wolves. Good stuff.
Lovecraft Country was just incredible.
Yeah, I want to watch that too. Yep. So I mean, I don't think I'm worried about that.
Well, and also Warner Brothers itself goes even far beyond HBO.
Right.
Babylon 5 was produced by Warner Brothers. There's a lot of stuff that's been distributed on NBC, ABC, CBS that was produced by Warner Brothers. Like, their catalog is massive. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're right. That $15 is sounding better and better because, 2 movies a month, if you went to the theaters, covers your $15 easily.
Well, where I am,
we're getting our first taste of that with Wonder Woman.
That's one ticket.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting close to that here too. So, we were going to get our first taste in December here with Wonder Woman 84 coming out. And now it's like Christmas came early. We're getting everything for next year.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I was worried about going to see some of these movies in the theater. Granted, the ones I'm really looking forward to the most are probably Dune and Matrix 4, which are late in the year.
I want to see Matrix 4 so bad.
But, it's a kind of thing where, are we going to be ready to go back to the theaters by that point? I mean, I really want to go to the theaters. Right. I don't want to see these at home.
Well, let's look back at 2020 real quick. The 4 things that were kind of going to define how things went. We had Tenet being the big litmus test right at the beginning, after the pandemic started. Then we had Mulan, and then Wonder Woman 84, and then the James Bond film. Well, they all kept getting pushed back. Tenet went ahead and released anyway. And it didn't do very well. It did far better than I expected it to. But as far as the litmus test goes, that was what showed the industry that it's not working right now. And then when the coronavirus numbers started to increase rather than decrease, well, that's not moving in the right direction as far as the theater industry is concerned. Now, I know that AMC desperately wants to get back into things. I mean, they were very viable. They were a business-wise, like their bottom line, they were a very viable ongoing concern for ages, and we're doing really, really well. And this hits out of the blue. And, you know, it's going to be hard for them to recover from this. They'll be able to. But in the meantime, like every day that they're not open, they're hemorrhaging money. They have to find a way to get back open. And yet it's not safe. It was not safe when Tenet came out. It's so much more not safe now. So we've had the release model for Mulan, which I have to say, as business models go, isn't that bad. And then this with Wonder Woman. And I'm wondering what the other services are going to do in answer to this. Is Disney going to continue with the Mulan model where you subscribe and then, but it's also a cheaper subscription too. And then you have to pay to get a copy of the movie in advance. Now, Wonder Woman is only going to be airing on HBO Max for a certain period of time, and then it's going off of the service until later on. So that's the other thing. You're not going to just be able to keep watching it over and over again. So there's that. But Lou, you said at the beginning of this episode that we talked a long time ago about a box. It was a set-top box that you plug into your television. It was by the makers of the guy who created Napster, right?
I think so. Yeah, that rings a bell.
And so it was going to...
It was Seth Green, wasn't it?
No. No. Sorry, a little Italian job joke there. So I have to say that would have been a great model if they had actually gone ahead with that. Both the movie studios and the theaters would be further ahead right now, because the theaters were going to get kickback from that. Right. And everybody said, oh, it's too expensive. It's not going to work. How dare you take things out of the theaters and put them in people's homes? Like a lot of filmmakers were saying this.
Right.
So,
and at the time, that probably was too expensive, because that was what, $150 for a movie or something?
No, it was going to be, I think, $50.
I thought it was something higher than that, but yeah. Anyway, but it was higher than what we have now. Now, I thought the Mulan model this year was. And again, I haven't dug into the financials of it, and no one's really published the stuff. But I thought that would have been a better bet for the theaters and stuff, because you're getting people that really wanted to see the movie first to pony up some extra money for it.
Right.
And if they could share that with the theaters, it's maybe a better way to go. I don't know, but doing what Warner Brothers is doing, that's just cutting the theaters out entirely, unless they're giving a kickback to them somehow. But I don't think they are.
I mean, it would almost be better to let I'm not suggesting this, but from a business model point of view, it might be better to let the theaters die out and then buy the theater chains. Warner Brothers buys Cinemark and Disney buys AMC and whatever. I think that would also create a mess, but I think that the production studios now are starting to cross over into distribution, and it's easy to take over the home market that way, because you set up a bunch of servers and online accounts and you're done. Theaters, though, and keep in mind the production studios still make a crap load of money in the theaters, but like you said, we haven't seen the numbers for the streaming services. But they seem to be making bank. The numbers don't make sense to me, but there must be something I'm missing. If you've got $15 a month, and let's say you have 10 million viewers, okay, so that's $150 million a month that you're bringing in, right? So if you make a movie and it costs you $200 million to make, Well, a large portion of your money that you get, $150 million a month, I mean, some of that's operational costs and employees and things like that, but some of that goes into the production of that movie. There's a production budget. Well, if you're making 30 movies a year instead of one movie a year, well, now that production budget, if your subscriber base is stabilized, you're watering down that money. And so like Netflix is starting to do all these high dollar value productions and stuff, but their subscriber base is relatively stabilized. So you're spreading that money out in more directions now, right? So I have to wonder like how that works in the long run, because you have to have more original content to get more subscribers in and to keep the ones you have.
Right.
And yet that's also kind of, you know, it's what's the word? Diluting basically the amount of money that any one project is really contributing. So,
right.
I don't know.
Well, and I see, you know, relative to Disney Plus, and we're going to have this Thursday, December 10th, Disney is doing their Investors Day. Last year, there were a lot of big announcements like the MCU Disney Plus TV shows and some other stuff that came out of it. So we're expecting Investors Day to be big. MCU announcements, Star Wars announcements, all sorts of various projects. And, you know, I've been predicting for better than the last month and a half, that Disney is going to announce something at this about new releases going up on Disney Plus. And I see that there's really a couple of options that they could do here. One, basically do what they did with Mulan, which was your regular Disney Plus subscribers, which are what, $6.99 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can pay a premium price to see whatever that new release was. I also see, especially given the pricing for HBO Max, I see that Disney may offer a second option, which is you can pay $15.99 a month, and that will get you all of Disney Plus, plus it'll get you all the new releases without having to pay for them piecemeal.
Right.
They'll just give them
like
to
the
you.
Disney Movie Club or something.
Yeah, so I see two potential Disney Plus packages. Plus, for the last few days, there's also been a big rumor that Disney Plus may be bringing in Hulu, which then addresses their whole adult content issue. And, you know, so you would have like this, you know, NC-17 portion of Disney Plus that would deal with that stuff. And then they could also put those new releases up there. So they could create this really big platform, multiple tiers, and it would really solve all their problems. And it would put them into regular competition with Time Warner. And I mean, face it, everyone's going to do this now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and I don't completely understand the economics of it either, Eric.
Right.
I mean, as it is, Hollywood economics are always weird anyway.
Yeah.
Because aside from blockbusters, most movies don't make their money back in the theater. Like, it's a long game.
Yeah.
For movies. So it's just, it's a really weird thing. So yeah, this really twists the economics, and it certainly like continues to throw a monkey wrench in our whole movie draft thing, because like Lou said, these streaming services don't release numbers, or very, very rarely do they ever. And it's certainly not a weekly listing. It's like twice a year they'll say, hey, this movie made us this much money, or we had this many downloads, or something like that.
Right.
So what does that equate to?
I would be really sad if
there's just so
our
many
movie
weird
draft
things
goes away.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really going to have, I think, a box office going forward. Box office results are going to be less meaningful.
Probably. If this continues past 2021, which we have every reason to believe that if it doesn't in this way, it will in some state. I mean, there's still incentive for the studios to succeed at the box office.
Oh, totally.
Right.
Totally.
So,
but once things change, it's kind of hard to put that genie back in the bottle, right?
True.
I mean, I don't know how you may go back to some semblance of what we had before, but I think you're always going to have now people that are going to have access to movies at home.
Right. And want that.
Because if this goes this way for 2021, people are going to invest more in their home theaters. I mean, people already have. Mm-hmm. They've done that this year alone. But, larger TVs, the prices are coming down. I was just telling Tim I was in Best Buy the other day, and I saw some really nice 85-inch TVs that make mine look like a, portable little, handheld device. And they weren't that expensive compared to what they were, say, just a year ago. So, if I put an 85-inch TV in my living room, I'd be pretty happy sitting here watching Wonder Woman 84 and not miss the theater.
Yeah, I'm driving up to your place. I'll just wear a hazmat suit, It's all good. But,
it's
go ahead.
The economics of it are obviously different. And, sure, 2021 could be the grand experiment for these. But like Lou said, you're kind of letting the genie out of the bottle. And are these companies going to basically go through the effort of this investment in the infrastructure to make this happen, along with the fact that they're ticking off an awful lot of people in the theater industry?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
by, fundamentally bifurcating this, even though really the theaters, I mean, how much money are they going to make in the middle of a pandemic anyway? So, I mean, I get they want to maximize what they can, but there's a whole lot of us that until this thing is substantially over with, aren't going to go to a theater. Doesn't matter.
And that's the thing, really. So, like, how much does this change for AMC? Like, they can release all the stuff they want to, but if nobody shows up, it's not the production studios that are the problem. And in fact, the lack of things tempting people to go to the theaters is probably one of the best things for public service right now. But so
what, as of tonight, the day we record this Sunday, the 6th, doesn't California's new stay-home order go into effect tonight?
I don't know. I've been at work all
certain
day.
Areas,
yeah. So you've got more things closing down now than we thought.
And the higher population centers are where theaters make more of their money, and that's also where you're going to have less people showing up. I mean, honestly, the more rural you are, the more likely people are going to be to go out and do something. A few points on the things we've discussed so far. I think that the Mulan model economically seems to make more sense, because the more people who are interested in seeing a particular movie do pay something for it. And so you're getting a direct return on that particular piece of content, as opposed to everybody's putting their money into this big pool, which is the subscription model. And that could be going toward not just Mulan, but also The Mandalorian and Mickey Mouse cartoons and everything else. And it's, again, it's getting diluted across many different projects. But when you have a model like The Mandalorian, you have something that attaches a monetary revenue to that particular piece of content. The other thing is, and we talked, I'm going to come back to this in just one second. I do want to say something about the whole nobody's showing up anyway argument. There's a point of view in which it's actually in AMC's best interest to let the studios do this. Not that AMC can really stop them from doing it, but if the studios can release these movies and monetize them, then that puts money back in their production budget again to make more blockbusters again, to then, when the theaters open up, get people back into those seats and seeing those movies. Like, to get people in the seats at the theater, there has to be new stuff coming out. Right now, there's no new stuff coming out because there's no money coming in. And there's no money coming in because nobody's watching this stuff that is in the can and is ready to be released. So the longer we sit there and there's just nothing new coming out, nobody industry-wide is making any money, not just the subset of the theater industry, but the entire movie industry, including production and everything else. So if at least that part starts making money, then they can start producing new content. And the day that the theaters are ready to open the doors, there'll be stuff there to release. But I want to go back to one other thing regarding the pay-per-view model with Mulan. Another thing that we had talked about on Random Chatter a couple of years ago, there was a suggestion that tickets so the average ticket price, I think, is what, $11, $12 nationwide. Okay.
Yeah, sounds right.
So
Sure.
Star Wars costs $20 per ticket, and yet something like Yesterday or Save Yourselves or smaller independent movies might cost $5, might cost $3. So, and that sounded like, okay, well, that's kind of a good idea. The Star Wars takes more money to make anyway, so you're paying for a more expensive product. And every other consumer industry, we do that already. And something that's an independent film, you pay less for, which would also increase people going to see the independent films. It would increase revenue for the theaters because they make their money from popcorn and sodas and stuff like that. They don't care what people are watching. They just care that there's someone there stuck in a chair for 2 hours who wants munchies. So, but it was complicated, and so that model really didn't get that far. But right now, and again, this isn't going to help theaters, but right now you can say Mulan can be 30, Wonder Woman 84 can be 30, but the Tom and Jerry movie could be 20, and Reminiscence can be 10. Like, you can actually do that right now a little bit if you wanted to, and it wouldn't be this logistical nightmare.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the other thing we didn't talk about was we mentioned the 2 or 3 different styles of releasing that's going on. Tenet was the one we mentioned where only releasing a theater, you know, somewhat mixed results. And now they're still going that same route of the home theater release. So it's being released on DVD and digital download on the 15th of this month, but no streaming service has it. So unless I really want to buy the movie, I'm not going to get to see it until it's available on a streaming service.
Right.
You know, I mean, they're going the complete other direction than what Warner Brothers is doing here. Warner Brothers is going to stream everything for you, making it very easy, whereas Tenet seems like they're making it hard.
I wonder how much, though, like the subscription model, trying to get people on board, trying to get people to sign up, trying to inflate their numbers. I mean, there's an argument that one of the reasons Apple TV is extending their trial for 3 months is so they can say, hey, we have 30 million users. You know, 29 million of them aren't actually watching anything on the service, but they've got the names in a hat.
Right.
So, but I'm wondering at what point does that bubble burst? And, you know, you're not bringing in new people anymore. You have a fixed budget now. Whereas something like Tenet, which is more akin to the traditional way of doing it, even if they released it for sale day and date with the theatrical release, I'd be okay with that. I'd buy a copy of Tenet. It was a good movie, audio issues aside. And again, I don't have the kind of bass production in my house that is going to, you know, the audio issue isn't going to be an issue here anyway. So I'll buy it. I'm going to buy it on the 15th. It's a great movie. So we've been doing that already for a long time, or you can wait another 6 to 12 months or whatever to watch it streaming, and it will come to streaming eventually.
Eventually, yeah. And for me, it's like, I mean, I know I'm going to like the movie, but I haven't seen it yet, and I very rarely buy movies that I haven't seen.
And that's fair.
You know,
then you'll just wait like we did before, and that's the same with Mulan for you, right? Like that's not that different from the Mulan model.
Only the fact that it's only been 2 months since they released it for people that wanted to pay extra for it, and I watched it this weekend. You know, it came available Friday for
It was a very narrow window.
So, right.
That's a good point.
But we knew what the path was too. It's like with Tenet, I mean, why aren't you releasing? I mean, make a plan. Tell us what it is.
I mean in part because it was it was very expensive, and they do need to. I mean, I think. Listen, I want stuff as cheap as I can get it. I'm the consumer. Obviously, I want it as cheap as I can get it.
Right.
But it costs a lot of money to make Tenet. And if we want to continue to get tentpole films like that, we do have to be willing to pay a little bit.
Oh,
and not that you're not.
Yeah.
So,
but at the same time, I'm wondering, were they approached by, a streaming service to say, hey, we'll give you X for your movie right away, or do they just say no, we're not doing that?
It's a good question
to find that out.
And that's one of the difficult parts about this discussion is we don't find out a lot of these numbers and stuff.
And speaking of that, the one thing that kind of surprised me reading through that, the quotes from AMC, I guess it makes perfect sense, but I guess I never thought of it in terms of, a contract that these studios would have with theater chains to be exclusive in the theaters, and what that looks like and what their agreements are. Because it says they made a decision to allow them to show Wonder Woman 84, one movie only, on Christmas.
But is allowed,
and now they're doing it for everything.
Is it a contractual thing, or is it the because they had said before with Universal, listen, we're not showing any of your movies ever again, ever.
Right.
And then
and what does that contract look? Because it says in the quote, it says they signed on for the exception to the customary practices for one film only. So customary practice, is there a contract there or not? Is it, how does that really work? And what kind of bridges are they burning by doing this?
Well, and the other thing too is contracts can be affected by things like governors of states mandating shutdowns and things like that. So,
I mean, both sides have to do what they feel is right for their bottom line. I mean, that's what it's coming down to. I find the quotes from them saying, hey, we have a vaccine around the corner and everything. That you can say all you want, but like you guys had said, and Tim had kind of reiterated it before, that we are 9 months to a year out before we see any significant amount of the population being vaccinated.
Right.
And even at that point, even though we think these are going to be, effective, we don't know how long the effectiveness lasts. There's a lot of unknowns. I mean, just because we're getting vaccinated, I think we're all going to feel better once we're vaccinated. And I'm looking forward to doing it, encouraging people to do it themselves. But are we, we're not out of the woods, even though we're going to feel comfortable about that.
Right. And I think that's part of it too. There's the human psychology of we're so anxious to get out of the woods that like we're jumping at this hope that, hey, we're done now. I mean, Tim, you've been talking about this a lot in our Discord server. We're not done. You can hope all you want, and remaining optimistic is good, but we're not out of the woods, and in fact, we are deep in the middle of the forest right now.
Yeah. Well, and quite honestly, that's the thing. That's where we're at with these with the production studios and looking at alternatives to distribution, because fundamentally they have made no money over the last 7 months, and what they have is obviously severely diminished from what they have made in the past. They know that this is going to continue on for the better part of another year, and they're figuring out another way. So again, is this only what they're going to do for next year? Is it going to be exclusively how things are going to be going forward past 2021? Don't know. But I think also it's hard to reel that backwards when you have people who are getting subscriptions for HBO Max, who are getting subscriptions for whatever other services end up doing similar models based on the premise that, hey, they have a great catalog of stuff that I can watch, but I also get to see day and date new releases that are going to be in the theater without having to go to a theater.
Yeah.
Are these studios just going to say, hey, folks, pandemic is over. Thanks for playing for the last year. It was awesome. But we're going to go back to just putting new releases in the theater. So catch us over there.
Right.
Now, that's totally fair for them to do. And quite honestly, I wouldn't knock them for it, because I think that's their biggest money generator.
But when you take away one of the biggest selling features of a new subscription service, you're going to expect a mass exodus.
Yeah. And I mean, they could certainly massage that a bit and kind of right size the model and say, hey, look, we are going to change things back to first release being in theaters because that's, quote, what most people want. It's what they want. That's the most profitable model, et cetera. But 2 weeks after it comes out, we're going to put it on the streaming service.
Yeah.
That's also pretty darn fair. I'm not knocking these production studios for what they're trying to do. They're trying to make money. And I'm not even saying that it's necessarily at the expense of the theaters, because the theaters right now aren't making money.
Right.
So, and yes, the theaters are a big part of that grand economy for the studios, but there's nothing just because it's, quote, the way we've always done it, that, this studio theater relationship exists, doesn't mean that's how it has to be tomorrow.
Right. And I think the narrowing of that window, I can see that being likely, because I mean, here's the thing. We're talking about, we're at the end of 2020 and we're talking about 2021. We will still be going through the pandemic at that point. But if we fast forward to 2022, and let's say, and we all hope that the pandemic's over, okay, what does it look like then? And I think that's one of AMC's concerns. Okay, yeah, maybe you did have to do that during the pandemic, but like you said, Tim, you can't, the streaming services are not going to allow that big mass exodus with people saying, oh, you're not giving me movies as soon as they're released in theaters anyway? Well, screw that.
Yeah.
And
I think something like a 2-week delay is pretty darn reasonable. I mean, I would still stay on a streaming service for that because, I mean, and we've talked about it before, there's a lot of movies that, I have interest in seeing, but it might not be, I'm talking normal times, non-pandemic times. I might have interest in seeing a certain movie. I really don't feel like going to a theater for it, so I'll wait it out.
Even if it's 4 weeks.
You know what?
Because that's a good run in a theater.
Yeah, if I'm going to get it in 2 to 4 weeks, hey, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I would still have no problem paying, whatever, again, like, if they went with something like that Disney Plus premium package that I, made up.
Yeah.
Disney Plus does $15.99 and you get to see new releases. You know what? I would still probably pay that. Why not? Especially if, in the first 2 weeks, the new MCU movie comes out. I'll probably go watch it 3 times in the first 2 weeks. And then I can sit at home and I can pause it all I want. And I can look at the freaking screen all I want to.
Which helps for podcasting.
And exactly.
Yep. But there are still reasons to go to the theaters, which is kind of part of what you're alluding to here. Not only the bigger screens and I don't have surround sound here. And even if I did have surround sound, it would not be as good as what's in the theaters. There's the immersion of being in a theater. It's you are in a big room. There are other people there. There's also a social experience, even if it's with strangers, even if you go by yourself, you are still in a room with other human beings. And there's something about that presence there. You're not looking at your cell phone. You're not distracted by everything. I have a hard time sitting here watching a movie now at home without at least occasionally checking messages or Discord, or, I have other responsibilities that I could set them aside for 2 hours. It's sometimes hard to do. Sometimes I can do it just fine. Sometimes it's tempting. In a theater, you don't have that temptation. You are completely immersed. And not only that, but for much of my life, going to the movies was a social activity too. You'd get together with friends, and that's what you went and did Friday night. You went and got dinner and a movie. And that's aside from the dating thing, right? Because it's a quote, safe place to go and have a date with someone without, you come back to my place or I go back to your place or whatever. Like it's kind of a known thing. So you've got the dating, you've got the group socialization. There are still reasons to go to theaters. And I think that people will still want the theaters even if I could watch it at home. Yeah, I could invite a bunch of people over to my house and watch it on HBO Max, but then I also have to clean my house. I have to make sure I've got the right drinks that people want for the right people. I have to worry about, okay, so-and-so always wants to stick around and talk until 2 a.m. and my gosh, I just want to go to bed. Like there are some other factors there, right? So I think that there's still going to be an interest in the social activity of going to a theater, as well as the immersion aspect of going to a theater. That's not going to change. So there's still going to be a place for theaters. I think people might be more selective about what they go see, but I think we've kind of been moving toward that anyway, with that that gap, that window getting more and more narrow over the years. You're not waiting 2 or 3 years for something to hit video now. You're waiting 1 year and then 8 months and then now 4 months and 2 months. Like, it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So in 2022, I think people are still going to go to theaters for the big tentpole releases and as social activities. But I think, yeah, you're going to hit that home theater market in wider distribution a lot sooner. The other thing, Spielberg and Lucas were talking a few years back, many years back, like I'm going to say 6-7 years. I think I'd have to look it up, about theaters eventually migrating back to becoming an event. Like, you might have to pay $100 to go to the theater, but like, you would dress up. You might have to drive a ways to do it, but it was a thing. It would be like going to the theater, like for a Broadway production or something. Like, that was, you went and you bought tickets and you made arrangements a long time in advance and stuff. And it would be more of a deluxe experience. I'm not talking deluxe in the sense that, ooh, we have reclining chairs. I mean, like, you dress up and it is a thing. It is, you know what I mean? Or it would be akin to going to a concert instead of just going to a restaurant. It would be a much less casual thing to do. We could see the return of that. I don't know.
I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, I don't think, well, I think theaters are going to survive through this. And of course, that's with there's a caveat here. I think that we are going to see some theaters fold. And I think it may very well be, some of the larger chains. I don't know that they can survive another, 9 or 10 months of this.
Right.
But does that mean that they go away? No. Someone else is going to buy them.
There will definitely be an evolution.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Now, will all of them be up and running as they were a year ago? No.
Yeah.
I mean, some areas, instead of having 3 theaters, may be going down to 1 or 2. And as we've been talking about for probably the last 3 years, theaters are going to have to continue stepping up their game.
Right.
In order to compete with streaming, because now it is a direct 1-to-1 competition. I mean, no doubt about it. With new releases coming out day and date on streaming.
Right.
So, and certainly theaters have upped the experience. I mean, you have the nice couches with the recliners and all that other stuff. Bigger screens and the surround sound and the better food, all that.
Some of that alcohol now.
Yeah,
just what we need.
But it's gonna have to. They have to up that experience even more.
Yeah, it's no longer going to be about the content. It's going to be about the experience.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's really what it has to be. They have to offer something substantially different than what I can see at home. And sure, what I'm seeing at home on my big screen is certainly nothing that compares to the big screen.
Right.
And, the massive surround sound system, but balanced out for 80% of the movies, I'm fine with that. It's going to be the big blockbusters that I do want to go to the theater for, because that is part of the experience, that whole ambiance. And I want to see it the way that it's intended to be seen, and you have, I mean, something like a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie, something like that. Those are supposed to be seen on a big screen. I mean, that's what they're built for.
Well, I mean,
yeah, they have to compete.
So answer me this, guys. I mean, when's the last time you guys saw a non-blockbuster movie in a theater?
The most recent movie I saw, but that was also because it was a date, and I had been I had already gotten it and erroneously thought, hey, well, once you have COVID, like, you can't infect anybody else afterwards while you're still immune to it yourself. And the reality is you can still reacquire it and carry it. Even if you don't have the symptoms, you could still pass it to someone. But I mean, we did research on the theaters. We were never within, I would say, 10 feet, let alone 6 feet of anybody else. And I know that still there's filtration issues that you have to worry about in theaters and stuff. Like, looking back, I don't know whether it was even the precautions and the research really even justified going. But so I did go to see Save Yourselves, which, by the way, it's a good movie. It's a very fun, independent film. But if you remove that example, no, I would be hard pressed to think of the last non-tentpole movie that I saw in a theater. I saw more back in 2017 when I had Movie Pass and into early 2018. But once I canceled that, no.
That gave you another way to go and not spend a lot of extra money. I mean, I'm just wondering, another one of the changes that might happen is maybe you don't see many of the smaller movies in a theater setting anymore. Maybe they're relegated to streaming. Maybe they're done differently. Yeah. Maybe you save the large screens in the movie houses for the large movies that we all want to see on a big screen.
Yeah. Speaking of big screen, that is the name of a VR app where you can watch movies as if you are in a theater. In a VR environment, you can invite friends into that theater and watch with you. You can even throw popcorn and stuff at the screen. But they do, you can buy tickets to see movies through big screen at certain times, and you show up and just like you would at a real movie theater. And they can be in high def. There was a 3D showing of one of the recent Star Trek movies recently. They're doing a 3D showing of Top Gun. And it's legit 3D. It's like active 3D glasses, not the passive stuff that you get in theaters. It's like actual good stuff. It's like what if you had a 3D television and you've got the special, the active 3D glasses instead of the passive ones. And I mean, it's just starting to take off because the price and technology barrier has still been pretty high for VR so far. But now with things like these, the standalone VR goggles, and I know PlayStation has had some success because a lot of people already have a PS4, and with the PS5 coming out, that will lower the barrier to entry as well. But I think, though I don't know that app is available on the PS system. But anyway, I think that's another venue where you could, I mean, it's easier to reproduce 3D sound in a headset sometimes than like going out and buying a multi-$100 or multi-$1,000 surround sound system for your house. And you still get the appearance of a big screen. If you're sitting really close to a 60-inch television, it can look like a bigger screen than if you're in a movie theater, but like way back in the nosebleed seats, right? Because it's all about your field of view.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't know. So, there are other things that can be coming down the pipe soon too. But what do you guys think about this? If we get this change, is it going to affect what you guys do? Like Lou, to your point just now, I don't know that it's going to change much of what I do. I'm still going to go see Star Wars and MCU and maybe even some DC movies in the theaters, and as well as some other Like Bond, I would probably. I'm not a big Bond fan though, but I'd probably still see that in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I'm already not seeing a lot of these smaller things in the theaters anymore, just because of the expense. So,
right.
Is this going to change anything
I
for
think
you?
I'm in the same. I think I'm in the same boat you are, Eric. I mean, the smaller stuff that is, unless my wife and I want to have a night out, we'll watch it at home. You know, and I think that may even affect some of my big screen movie viewing of action type stuff. If it's not something that I really, really, really want to see, I might just see it at home because, you know, I do have a pretty good surround sound system and I do have a fairly nice TV. I'm wanting something bigger, but, you know, I feel pretty good about watching a good action movie at home on my TV and enjoying it. So that second tier of action movie, I might just say, you know what, I'm going to wait. I mean, like you all see the Marvel MCU stuff and the Star Wars stuff in the theaters, and a few other things too. But the other stuff that's action oriented but not blockbuster, I might just wait and see it at home.
Tim, what about you? Is this going to change anything for you?
Yeah, I'm basically the same thing you guys said. I think, you know, big picture with the assumption that we're going to see other studios doing something similar to Time Warner. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm going to be with this. And, you know, I mean, we're already considering getting HBO Max, and we don't currently have it. But, you know, we're looking forward to seeing Wonder Woman 84 around Christmas time. And if this is their plan going forward, I mean, obviously, there's a ton of phenomenal movies that Warner Brothers puts out. Yeah. They have a great catalog on HBO Max right now. And it seems that, like you said, Eric, I mean, you've had it and you've said, okay, this is okay value. And now they've made this announcement. You're like, wow, this is insane value. And it really is. It truly is. So and you know, can't knock it.
And back to my point about MoviePass, when you were asking Lou when's the last time you saw like a non-tentpole movie in a theater, I went and saw Happy Death Day. I think was the first thing I saw with MoviePass. And it's a movie I never would have. I don't even like horror movies. Now, it turns out it was a good movie, but I never would have seen that in the theaters. And I saw a few other things too that I think Baby Driver I saw with MoviePass. Wouldn't have ever seen that in the theater, and I loved it. I think that this will help people discover movies that they wouldn't otherwise get to see, because they're going to be more willing to watch those movies because you're not making this investment of anywhere from $20 to $100, depending on how many of you are in your party and how much you like to eat at the theaters. Plus, in some places, parking, babysitters, etc. There are a lot of movies, I think, for those that people are on the fence about. I think that fence just got a lot closer and a lot easier to kind of climb over it now. So I think the exposure for a lot of these other movies that might fly under the radar otherwise, I think that's going to be good, even if only creatively. I don't know about the financial side of it that much. And again, it's hard to know because they don't release any numbers. So it's very confusing. Yeah. This whole scenario, trying to figure out what the best way to move forward is from our perspective. And it's moot because we're not the ones making the decisions. But for us to understand it, it's tricky. So... Well, I agree with you guys. I don't think it's going to change anything that I do, really. But as far as this thing with AMC, I think that what else are you going to do right now? I mean, you've got to understand that Warner Brothers is, they have to continue making money if they're going to continue to provide you with content for you to make money. I mean, it's kind of biting the hand that feeds you to a certain extent. I think they need to be a little more patient with that. And I don't think that we're going to be back in theaters by February, March, April. I think it's going to be later than that. Yeah, a lot of people will have been vaccinated by then, but not enough. Like, it's still not going to be the vast majority of the population until, like you said, Tim, into late summer. So the better part of 2021 is still going to be a situation where AMC's still not making any money, and it has nothing to do with Warner Brothers or Universal or Disney or anybody else. You just don't have customers.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
So don't kill off your supply chain in the process. Let your supply chain live so that then you can get supplies later for your own business.
Yeah, I really think that the theaters, it's a tough pill for the theaters to swallow. I completely get it. Certainly right now with where we're at, which is, the basically, at least here in the US, we are at a new peak. We're at a new high for coronavirus infections, deaths, hospitalizations, all that kind of stuff. Theaters, they have to understand that at least in the short term, they're not going to be doing much.
No.
And for the long term, exactly what you said, they basically need to maintain these relationships, and they have to say, hey, look, we understand, film studios, that you're doing what you need to do to survive. Obviously, we want to survive too. And we know that the current environment is not one that we can survive in. However, our survival is very much dependent on your survival.
Yeah.
Because if the theaters don't survive, the studios don't survive, there's no need for movie theaters.
Right. It's a very good point.
They gotta just maintain that relationship and hope that they're going to survive in the short term to then, be able to survive in the long term. Yeah. It's a tough thing. I totally get it. It's a very tough thing for them. And again, some of these movie theaters are going to go under. They're absolutely going to go under, and we're going to see them under new ownership, or at least a lot of them under new ownership once the pandemic is substantially over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that's changed with this pandemic as far as companies go and who's where. And, I was in a mall over the weekend and it was like a ghost town. I mean, there were empty stores all over the place.
Right.
It's just we're going to come out of this, but it's going to be a little bit more pain before we come out the other side. And once we come out, hopefully we'll be stronger for what we went through.
I think that the theater, in the same way that the studio perspective and paradigm has had to shift, I think that the theaters have to shift as well. And they've already started to do it in some ways. And even with the pandemic, they've started to do private screenings and stuff like that, which if you think about it, if I were going to have a birthday party, I would totally be down for that. Or in some cases, you can plug video game systems in and have a birthday party or something like that, and you're playing, multiplayer games in a theater with your friends on this giant screen. I mean, that's fun. That's something that's a way for them to create additional revenue where they wouldn't otherwise. And I think that they need to continue moving in that direction. But I think it's important to realize that if you want content to be there when you finally open your doors, you better let the studios be able to bring in enough money to keep making films. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's good for us. And that $15 a month just got a lot more valuable. So, and any other comments on this before we move on? Lou, you said you've already got HBO Max, right?
I do,
okay,
yeah.
And I've got it. And Tim, you said you guys are considering it.
Yeah, we're strongly considering it, which pretty much means it's going to happen, later this month.
Yeah, by the 25th, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a good chance.
Really good chance. Yeah. Okay. I couldn't find a lot for the rest of the news for this week. I've got 3 things in the lightning round there. DuckTales is ending with season 3. Superstore is ending with the 6th season, which is the current season. And then Fear the Walking Dead got renewed for season 7. I didn't realize it had been around that long.
Yeah, I read the season 7 thing. I'm like, it's been here for 7 seasons already? Wow.
Some people really like that show. I like the original Walking Dead, and I guess I just had a hard time getting through the pilot for Fear the Walking Dead.
I watched the first 2 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead, and once it changed directions into what it became, it's like this is just the same thing on a different coast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it for the lightning round.
Well, that's it for the show then.
What are you talking about, Alexa? What? Okay. Stop. Shut up. Yeah. Alexa, stop. Wow.
This week in Alexa.
So tune in next
totally
week when
staying in the
Amazon gets taken over by Skynet. The hell was that? That's okay. There's that big old red circle with the slash button on it. Fix her.
Turn her right off.
Yeah. Anyway, Lou, you were saying.
No. I watched the first 2 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead and decided it was just more of the same, and I didn't want to watch it anymore, so I stopped. I mean, I like the Walking Dead stuff. It's just that they need. So far, I'm still happy with the new Walking Dead show.
Yeah. Is it good?
What's that? The World Beyond?
Yeah, I've heard some good things about it.
Yeah. Last weekend was their season finale, and it was pretty good.
Was it?
I'm still behind a few episodes. So
I haven't even started it.
Yeah, it overall took a twist that I didn't expect. I was getting tired through the episodes because it seemed like basically every episode they had their A plot line, and their B plot line was this like annoyingly persistent, constant stream of flashbacks as they showed the backstory of a different character.
Okay.
Which just like seemed to stretch out that whole backstory thing obnoxiously long.
Like Lost
so that
did
was getting really
with
old
their
for me.
flashbacks?
Never watched Lost.
Oh.
What?
Tim.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I, got over it. All in all, the storyline's really good. I'm enjoying it. I like where they're ending up. I'm really interested to see where they're going. They're talking that there's intersections with where Rick ended up and that kind of stuff. So we're gonna, see some coalescing of things, and I'm cool with that. I like they're basically getting into what you would truly expect would be the politics of a re-emerging society after an event like that. And it's really fascinating.
Wow. Okay.
And that's what I've liked about the show so far is that we have that the overall story about the society that's moved on and how they've adapted.
Right.
And that to me is fascinating because that's what a post-apocalyptic world is. How do you, we had some bad stuff happen. I don't need to see the bad stuff every week. I want to see how we're recovering from this.
Right.
Just like Fear the Walking Dead, I was hoping was going to be about the early days of what happened and learning from that. But that quickly devolved into, after the first, 2 episodes? Okay, we're full on in the zombie world now, so that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll try this new series out. That actually sounds pretty good. And again, I've heard a lot of good things about it. I don't even think I've seen a trailer for it. I'm aware of it. Okay. I just never bothered to look at it because I thought, well, I'm just going to wait and see what people say about it. But maybe I need to check it out.
Well, people are saying, Tim and I, being people.
That is true. I checked.
Watch it.
Okay.
Good stuff.
I got nothing else.
Okay, well, in that case, I think we are about out of show. We appreciate the chat room for being here with us. Always good to have you guys here and making comments to us and keep us on straight and narrow. If you're listening to us on audio only and have not seen our YouTube version of this, go to randomchatter.com/YouTube. Check that out. Watch our videos, see our smiling faces. See our interesting themed backgrounds
festive
for
holiday decorations. Yeah,
exactly. Tim went a little overboard this year, but it's Tim.
He's thorough.
Hey,
thorough. It's a good word for it.
All in.
Yes,
all in.
If you want to interact with us, recommend you going to randomchatter.com/Discord. You can get access to our Discord server there and chat with all of us on there, both listeners and hosts. And if you like that a lot, you can certainly go to randomchatter.com/Patreon, subscribe for $1 a month, and open up to the rest of our Discord server that we kind of give as a thank you for anybody who has subscribed to us. And of course, at the very end of that, we do have our store. So if you want to get it's sweatshirt season now. Actually, it's past sweatshirt season because it's getting pretty cold out there. But randomchatter.com/store get you into our store to check out t-shirts, hats, and all
like what I've got on right now. See. Pretty sexy, isn't it?
Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't tell.
This shirt, not what's happening up here. Just the shirt.
Eric, don't discount it, man. Don't discount it.
I mean, he'd be a lot sexier if he shaved his head. Just saying.
This is true.
Team bald guy.
I mean, I've done worse things. I don't know. We're getting close. So
that's what happened to me. I was getting close and preemptive strike.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, speaking of YouTube, we're going to be doing another recording Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be discussing Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman 2 or Wonder Woman 84. I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the next 82 of them.
I know. I didn't realize there was 82 of them, or 81 of them.
Talk about some fast production there.
Man.
But in order for us to discuss that and everybody to prepare for the Christmas release of Wonder Woman, and we are going to have a holiday themed episode of Movie Chatter too, but we thought, why not talk Wonder Woman? Arguably the best of the DC movies. So.
Yeah, I've only seen it once. I saw it once in the theater.
Okay.
And I'm excited to see it again. That's why I wanted to make sure I see it again before Tuesday.
Yep.
So
I've seen it twice, but it's been a while. So I'm looking forward to seeing it again. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Thank you, everybody in the chat room for hanging out with us. And we will see you again very soon. Take care.